Sup, dogs? Hope you guys been having a great time. I've been busy the past couple of 2 weeks trying to move, and hey, look at that. There's even some stuff still hanging around. Anyway, today we're not talking about that or how much this little den echoes. Instead, we're going to talk about some of the updates that I never would have expected when, well, publishing Caster's Trap. And it's more so to give you guys an idea of what sort of things you may need to expect when it comes to your time. Believe it or not, all of it actually has to do with one thing: player experience optimization. But it's actually just one thing, so I put up 3 fingers, but it's actually just one thing. Now, that may sound extremely obvious, but after I list these 5 things, then I don't know, you tell me. Would you have seen these sort of things coming? 1. Are these doors? Okay, I will admit, these do not look like doors at all, and I could have placed a down-facing door sprite here, but I kinda assumed that these outjuttings gave the sense of leading into a new room. As it turned out, it was only due to my many years of RPG Maker games and your even top-down pixelated games that made it make sense to me. When watching playthroughs, well, players walked up to it but didn't bother interacting, so as a result, arrows were added. Speaking of just walking up to things, I had to add the instructions of interacting with objects. Ironically, this stemmed from the version update to 1.1 where touch controls became 100% implemented. At the start of the game, I gave instruction as to how to make the player move, so that of course involved WASD, arrow keys, and the little touch that you can see there. That's a hand poking. Yeah. But here's the thing. No one bothered to try using the space or enter keys. Okay, understandably, E has kind of gotten its way into the standard of interacting with objects. So, yeah, I'll give it that. Especially since RPG Maker does kind of live in that dinosaur age where, well, it expects your players to only use space, enter, and, believe it or not, Z. Out of all buttons, Z. And believe it or not, X actually gets you into the menu screen. Weird, right? So yeah, I guess as RPG Maker developers, we now have to actually show the player what your controls are. Because RPG Maker, you ain't living in a modern day. Let's go! Honestly, I can spend an entire video just talking about puzzle using all 9001% of my brain juices. Just diving into the psychology of puzzles and how they used to be much more difficult in the early 2000s and kind of gotten a lot more easier in today's gaming world. And if you don't believe me, check this out. If you're honestly gonna sit there and tell me that you had no idea how to solve that puzzle, then shame on you. I mean, granted, you probably just didn't know what Genshin Impact was, and you probably didn't know that you can smack things, so I guess that's fair. Or is it? Anyway, not to say that people got lazier or reverse smarter, but I do think that puzzle games have evolved from a state of most challenging thing possible to things I want to relax and play instead. Or rather, chill gaming. Hear me out on this. So you have your MOBAs, your MMOs, and your shooters where pretty much every second of what you do matters. Whereas on the other hand, you have these puzzle games where, assuming it's not time restricted, you actually have as much time as you need to do what you gotta do. Do you see the divide there yet? So on one hand, you're constantly thinking 3 steps ahead, whereas on the other hand, you're kind of just relaxing, tackling things as they appear. So on this side, you have high brain activity, whereas on this side, you rather just leave it down here. And I even find myself preferring that style of puzzle games because usually when I'm playing them, it's laying down on the sofa, handheld in one hand, Cheetos in another. Just kidding, don't do that. That's just oh. Anyway, I do find myself actually just laying down and enjoying myself some ever so classic Vita. So yeah, not to mention that a lot of these puzzle horror games are usually very story driven, and when you're playing a game that's more story driven than action packed, well, usually you just want to chill and relax and enjoy it, as opposed to try and think 3 steps ahead of the developer. So while watching Let's Plays, I made absolutely sure to really note down the vibe that I was getting while they were solving each of the major puzzles. So Casper's Trap does feature an autosave, and to my surprise, a lot of the time, no one used the autosave. And understandably so, it's because whenever you load up your game, it goes to your most recent save file as opposed to your load file. But in a horror game where death can not necessarily occur easily, but in the least opportune time, we'll just call it that, well, that's where the autosave makes the most importance. Like you're in a boss fight, and then after spending 10 minutes in a boss fight, you're in phase 2. And then you lose in phase 2. Well, if you just use your manual save, then of course you're going to have to restart phase 1. But if you remember you had your autosave, well, it'll send you straight to phase 2. Fortunately, while watching several playthroughs, the autosave was often forgotten. So I decided to prioritize the autosave. And if you guys are also using Visustellas, or perhaps any autosaves for that matter, then here you guys go. This is where you can find it. Alright, this one is honestly a nasty one, and you really, truly will not catch it unless you have testers or even a proofreader. In Casper's Trap, I had this dialogue that more so served as flavor text for when the player reminisces about their grandfather, and within that text actually mentions about a spider. Well, somewhere else in the game, there is also a little mention of a spider, and this spider more so acted as a, believe it or not, Easter egg for the original 2014 version. Something I'll get into maybe in a different video. But some players thought, hey, this item which was connected to this flashback about the grandfather that mentioned the spider, that must be what it's used for. This spider right here. It wasn't. Instead, all it did was confuse several players, and it was something I had to make sure I corrected right away. So there you guys have it. 5 things I honestly did not expect to be updated for Casper's Trap. And of course, I'm only telling you guys this not so for you to take all the things that I did and immediately put it into your game before you release yours, but instead to just be aware that a good portion of your time will be used to optimize it in ways that you just don't expect. So don't jump into your first major update yet. Like I did, I immediately went to the 1.1 update. But instead, just make sure that you devote the first few weeks into optimizing your game as it launches and goes through the many different players that it reaches. Anyway, I think if anything, this video goes to show how such a newbie I am at this, and I would more than anything love to hear some of the things that you guys went through. If anything, it might teach me for, well, my next big project, and anyone else out there. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Till then, later!